Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. With host and founder Richard Case and co-host and retreat leader Kathy Ricconi. Today is our special guest day, where we will hear from a friend of the ministry who will share their insight and stories on truth in this chaotic world. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is Guest Thursday, and Kathy, I have a very special guest that's a friend of mine, and we've been working together, going through the Word for the last, 10 plus years, and Ken's got a group of people that join us, so we do it as a group every Wednesday morning, so it's a thrill. And Ken Blanchard, who is a famous author, author of the 1 Minute Manager, and then Ken, how many books have you written altogether?
Oh, I don't know, 65 or 66, something like that.
Man, and where are you physically located? You're out in San Diego area. Where are you right now?
We're in Rancho Bernardo, but I'm up at our office in Escondido.
Escondido,
We have a studio up here.
Yeah. So we didn't need to send you any technology. Ken said I already have it.
That's excellent. Ken, let me just say, your book, you wrote 1 Minute Manager in 1982, I believe, if I'm correct on that. I was 12 years old when that was written. However, that is a book that I have heard of time and time and time again. And so the timelessness of the things that God laid on your heart to write and the movements that they have made in leadership and management and everything else are really amazing to me when I think about that.
Yeah.
Well, it really is a blessing when I look back at that. I met a guy recently who said his grandfather gave the 1 Minute Manager to his father, and his father just gave it to him.
That's awesome. I love it.
That's quite a span there. So
yeah, it's a timeless set of truths that have been used worldwide around the world by businesses and people all over the world. And Ken, to help us have the audience learn about you a little bit, how did you come to know Christ in your life?
Well, it was interesting. I was named after a Presbyterian minister. My middle name is Hartley, and the pastor was Bob Hartley, and my mom and dad just loved him, and so I stayed in the Presbyterian church and went to Sunday school and all. But in junior high school, I switched to a Methodist church because they had a better basketball team, and so I played ball with them, and then I went to Cornell, which was not a haven of spirituality, the Ivy League. And kind of drifted away. And then I met Margie right after my senior year when I was just graduating, and she said we need to get back in our relationship with the Lord, and we did. And our first teaching job after my doctor's degree, though, I went to Ohio University in Athens, Ohio, and there was a great Methodist pastor there, and he was helping lead the student sit-ins on the war against Vietnam, and his congregation fired him in the most vicious thing we had ever seen, and we said, if that's what Christianity and all about, we don't need that, because we had seen a lot of hypocrisy in quote religion.
Yes.
And so we drifted away, and I didn't think much about the Lord until the 1 Minute Manager came out, and it was so ridiculously successful. An old buddy of mine, Phil Hodges, who I met freshman year at Cornell on the bus to orientation camp, called me and said, Ken, let's take a walk on the beach in La Jolla. I want to talk to you. And he had become a big believer in the Lord and follower through his wife, Jane, who was from Louisville, Kentucky. And so he said, Ken, why do you think the book has been so successful? And I don't know why I said, but I think God must be involved. And he said, oh, thank God. And it's amazing. The minute he mentioned that, then things started to happen. I got a call, would I write a book with Norman Vincent Peale? And I said, is he still alive? Because my parents had gone to his church before I was born. And Norman and Ruth had a wonderful impact on Margie and I. They said, the Lord's always had you on his team. You just haven't suited up yet. So suiting up became the thing. And they were so much into the love aspect of Jesus that it was just amazing. And then I started to read the Gospels and started to laugh because everything I had ever written about leadership, Jesus did with these 12 incompetent guys he hired. I mean, you wouldn't have hired that lot. And so he's the greatest leadership role model of all time, but people weren't talking about that.
Absolutely.
And so that was when Phil and I started, Lead Like Jesus in 1999. And so I think it's through Jesus as a great leader that I really rekindled my love for the Lord and realized that he was just there for us. And then I got involved with Bob Buford, who started Halftime, you know, and said that you're in the locker room in the 50s and you're got to come out and you want to move from success to significance to surrender, and he just really made an impact on me, and then he turned me over to Bill Hybels that had built the Willow Creek Community Church, and Hybels says, Blanchard, I don't know why you haven't signed up a lot sooner. You get 3 consultants for the price of 1. You get the father that started it, the son that lived it, and he said the Holy Spirit's the day-to-day operational manager, which I think, Rich, is a great definition of the Holy Spirit, of chief operational manager. And so it's been a wonderful journey, and Margie ended up re-signing up herself, through reading up about the Lord, and so it's been really a powerful part of our lives ever since, and we're just excited. And I met Rich at a seminar.
Yep.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where was this at?
That was down in Dallas, actually.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and he could tell that I was kind of a beginner in the study of the Bible, and said, "Can I be glad to help you?" And so we started to meet on the phone, and I realized how powerful it was to know more about the Bible. And I said, "Do you mind if I bring in some friends?" And so now there's, I think there's 5 of us that gather on early Wednesday.
You guys have been
morning.
meeting together for how long now?
20 years.
Yeah, it's going on. Yeah, 15,
that's
15
amazing.
plus year. Yeah, and it's Phil Hodges, who was the guy that helped join with him and Lead Like Jesus. Estine Loen out of San Diego. He's a developer and doing stuff for churches. Is kind of cool. Jim Mudd, who's a board member, used to be a board member of Ken's. And he had a car dealership where he does marketing for the dealerships, and then
in the Midwest,
and then Vince Siciliano, who's was a banker, and he's living in San Diego. So we get on the call. We get on a call every Wednesday that we're all available, and we do is just get in the Word, and Ken, particularly because of his freshness of walking with God, just says, well, hey, what about this? How does that work?
That's great.
And so we just get in, let's get into that, and so we're having the time of our life. And Ken, go ahead,
I
Ken.
sent you a copy of that sermon by Tim Keller. I don't know if you got a chance to listen to it.
Yeah.
I thought that was really powerful about the prodigal sons. He said he called it the prodigal sons.
Sons, that's right. It's about both of them. Yep. And you actually wrote a book called The Mulligan.
Yes.
Tell us a little. We'll come back. We want to talk about how you met Margie, but tell us a little bit about that book, and because that was all about do-over and forgiveness and things that Kathy and I keep teaching.
Yeah.
Well, golf has been a big part of my life. I
imagine in sunny California it would be.
I started a golf university years ago. We were teaching golf, and
wow.
And to me, golf spells game of life first. But I met Wally Armstrong, who was one of the great touring pros as well as teachers. He held the record at the Masters tournament for about 20 years of the best score of a first-time entrant, 8 under par for 4 rounds, which is really amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he started a Mulligan Golf Club, and I said, "What's that all about?" He said, "Well, it's about Jesus, because he's the greatest mulligan of all time in golf. In the first tee, if you hit a bad shot, somebody says take a mulligan. It's named after a guy who originated that concept." And I said, "My God, we ought to write a book on that." So I met with him at Callaway Gardens for a couple of days, and and listened to him, and went back home with all kinds of notes, and kind of had forgotten about it. And then we're in a faith-based group that gets together once a year and plays golf together. And the head of it, Tom Case, called me and says, "Ken, you got a good new book that we could give to everybody to read before they come?" I said, "Yeah, got a new book I'm working on called The Mulligan." I said, "Well, I need it in 2 weeks." I hadn't written anything, and I said, "Okay, Lord, I need you." And I wrote the book in 2 weeks,
Oh, that's amazing.
and it's now being made into a movie.
That's
It's
right.
coming out, and it's going to be showcased at the Masters, special showing on the 13th, which is Tuesday of the Masters tournament, and
Oh,
then it's going to be
wow.
in over 1,000 theaters on the 17th and 18th of April.
Excellent.
And it's a story about a kind of an uptight businessman whose life is all about his work, and he's been
Mm-hmm.
separated from his wife for 5 years, hasn't talked to his son for years, and he goes down to this pro-am tournament in Carolina because they want him to meet some president from China who's going to be there playing in the tournament. And so he goes and he draws Tom Lehman uh, as his uh, as his playing partner. That's a pro, and he thinks Lehman's going to love playing with me because he sees these other amateurs he's playing with hit, and they're all 20 or 25 handicappers, and he's a 10. And he gets up to the first tee to hit, and the caddy's telling him what to do, and it annoys him, and he chops it into the rough and chops it out, and he's doing this play terribly. Finally, on the ninth hole, hits a great drive, a great 4-iron, about 4 feet from the cup. If he knocks it in, it'll be a 200 par eagle for his team. And Lehman's down measuring the putt with him, and he gets up and he leaves it short, and he breaks it over his putter over his knee and throws it into the sand trap. And so he's walking to the 10th tee and thinking, I ought to get out of here. And Lehman's waiting for him, and he says, "Paul, we didn't get to talk much the first 9, but to be honest with you, you're not that good to get that mad," which I thought was a wonderful line, isn't it? And he said, "What I've noticed, and Lehman's a great man of faith, is that life and golf are pretty much tied together. If you're having trouble out here in the golf course, which I've already observed, I bet you're having trouble in your life too. But there's an old guy that sits on the front porch of the clubhouse. We call him the old pro. He's about 90 years old, and he'll straighten out your golf game and your life." And Paul Newman, not Paul, no, Pat Boone plays the old pro,
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
the old crooner, and so this guy starts going to see the old pro, and one day he goes to see him, and the old pro says, "Paul, we're going to play a special round today. I'll drive the golf cart and you play, but you can take a mulligan on any shot you want." He said, "I thought it was just for the first tee." He said, "Normally is, but you can take a putt over, you can do anything over." And he said, "This ought to be fun." In the beginning, he takes a lot of mulligans, and then he hardly takes any, and he shoots a 70, and he's never broken 80 in his whole life. And he's sitting with the old pro after the 18th hole, and the old pro says, "Paul, why do you think you played so well?" He said, "Because I realized if I made a mistake, I would be forgiven, and it made me relax." And he said, "Well, how would you like to be forgiven every day of your life?"
Yeah.
And that'd be great. What do I have to
Oh,
what do
that's
I have to do? He said,
beautiful.
it's not about doing, it's about believing." He said, "And what?" "And Jesus." He said, "Don't get religious with me." He said, "No, but God sent Jesus down here to play the perfect round. Here's his scorecard. 10 birdies, all you have to do is sign it for your own and turn it in." And through this whole dialogue with the old pro, he takes the Lord into his life, and then ends up. I have a cameo scene at the end. They got me dressed up.
Oh,
I
excellent.
look like the Pope, but I remarry Paul and his wife
Yeah. Yeah.
at the end. But it's just being received wonderfully. The previews and the people who have seen it. But I think it's going to be a wonderful way to share the gospel
It sounds like it.
believers and non-believers, without doing that. Because, as Rich, you and I have talked, I don't think Jesus came down here to start a religion. He came down here to build a relationship.
That's it.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, and the neat thing is that and then Kathy and I, we're actually starting a new series next week, Ken, on our podcast called The Covenant. I'm going to bless you to make you a blessing, because what you just said is that all the time it's like, well, God says, yeah, I know what happened, but I can give you a mulligan. I can redo this and watch what I'm about ready to do. So that's going to be a fabulous story to illustrate that beautiful truth of the life of God. It's available to all of us. We can just take another shot.
That's right. Yeah, he says, and we can't earn that extra shot.
Right.
That's it. But tell
All
us
about grace,
tell
right?
us a little bit about you said you met Margie at college. So tell us a little bit about that and what led you to get married together.
Well, I had officially graduated, and we were doing senior week, and she was going out with a friend of mine in another fraternity, and I went over to a party over there and was sitting around talking to, we called them Looper, and Margie, and so Looper's dad had died, and he said, Ken, what are you going to do this summer? And I said, I'm going to be up in Cornell in Ithaca playing golf and taking a course to lighten my loads. And well, Margie said, I'm going to be up here too. She was a speech therapist. And so he said, well, Ken, would you do me a favor and take Margie out for a drink once in a while? Because I doubt if I'll get up this summer, And so as a good friend, you always kind of have to follow through. But I didn't actually think about it, but I came home when I got back up there, and the guy I was rooming with told me when I came from class one day, he said, Ken, he said, I'm going out to have a drink with Annie Van Order, who happened to be a sorority sister of Margie. He said, why don't you come and go out and drink with us? And I said, well, let me call Margie McKee. She's almost married too. And because he was going to be the best man in Annie Van's marriage. She was marrying his best friend, so they had no relations. They were just friends. So I called Margie and took her out, and we had a wonderful time. And I came back, and when I got back to the fraternity, my roommate said, I've never seen a guy fall that quickly. He said, you were drooling in your soup. And so I asked Margie out a few more times, but Looper, back then we didn't have email or things like that.
Right.
Once in a while he would write a letter to her, but it was like a letter to his sister. And Margie wanted something more romantic and all. So I started my writing career writing her notes.
Oh, I love it.
And then pretty soon over the summer we fell in love, and she had to figure a way to tell Looper in the fall. And she's a pretty special. This is going to be 60 years of marriage, Rich, in June.
Yes, yeah, that's going to be exciting.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
People have asked me what's the key to that. I think the key, number one, is to marry your own best friend. And I think, now key in the last, half of our marriage has been having and sharing the Lord in our lives together, Yes. And so it really has been a fun thing. And people say, hasn't this pandemic been awful? I said, not that bad. I've been locked in with Margie. I mean, how bad can it be?
How many kids you guys have?
We have two. Scott's the new president of our company, and then our daughter Debbie is the head of marketing, and so we got two kids, and Margie's brother Tom, who was born when she was a freshman at Cornell, he's our CEO, and Scott's wife Madeline has headed up our coaching business for years, and so we get about 250 people, but it's still a family led.
And what
company.
What is your present company? What is that?
It's called the Ken Blanchard Companies, and I didn't want to call it that name, but other people said people love to identify.
Yes, absolutely.
With people, and so.
And so, what exactly is it?
It's a leadership training company.
Oh, excellent.
And we have learning materials, and we teach about leadership and building trust, and we think that leadership is a transformational journey, starting with first knowing yourself. And so we have a program on self-leadership, and then one-on-one leadership, how do you build trust with somebody else? Then team leadership, how do you build a sense of community? And then finally organizational leadership, when you build a culture. And so we're in business now 42 years, and less than
Excellent.
5% of the companies that start ever last 40 years. And
Wow.
so it's been, and I was, of course, smart enough to realize Margie should be president when we started. And my title is I'm the chief spiritual officer.
Yeah.
And so,
Yep. Yep.
you know,
And how many you serve businesses all over the world?
that's right. Yeah.
And has been and continues to do that, Kathy.
Yeah.
And it's pretty special. And what's the biggest company you guys have ever served that you are aware of?
Oh, we've worked with AT&T and, and GE and companies like that,
Yeah.
and then Lead Like Jesus now is all over the company. It's headed back east because I didn't want people to get confused that we were, just teaching about Jesus in our public company.
Right.
And but it's really is. But the concepts that we teach, I found, are all things that Jesus taught. And I didn't create any of these theories. God gave them to me with a purpose. I think that that's the interesting thing, don't you think? In life, Rich, is to find out what God's purpose in your life. And I think because He always has plans that you maybe don't know. I love the quote that Margie uses all the time: "Is life is what happens to you when you're planning on doing something else." Because my faculty all said I couldn't write when I was in graduate school. I should be an administrator.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ken was one of the key little story is he was I think this was you were a professor at Cornell, right?
Yes, we taught courses there for 20 years, but I was actually a professor at UMass and Ohio University. I got my doctorate degree at Cornell. They brought Margie and I back to teach a course. Our son Scott and his wife have taken over our course now. It's out of the hotel school at Cornell. It's one of the great hotel schools in the world.
Great.
Because Ken was so creative and his heart was for the purity of it. I said, well, he wanted his students to actually learn something. You always did something unusual, but you got your administration wasn't actually happy with it. But at day one, you gave away the final exam. And why did you do that? You actually gave the students day one. He gave them the final exam, the form of it.
Yeah, the faculty would say, "What are you doing?" I'd say, "I'm confused." They say, "Acted." I said, "I thought we were supposed to teach you, student. You are, but don't give them the final exam at the beginning of the class." I said, "Not only am I going to give them the final exam, what do you think I'm going to do all semester? I'm going to teach them the answers. So when they get to the final exam, they get A. Life's about getting A's, not some stupid normal distribution curve." And so,
Right.
I go into organizations and all the time and say, "How many of you go out and hire losers? We lost some of our worst people last year. Let's hire some new losers to fill the low slots, And no, you either hire winners you get from other companies, or you hire people with potential. And so this whole normal distribution curve and managers going around with their arms full, evaluating and judging, Jesus went around and what did he do? He cheered people on, He was not afraid to give a 1-minute reprimand. He threw the money lenders out of the temple. But it's all about compassion and love and helping people win,
Yeah.
It's just
As
so great.
As Ken has learned it. One thing we've done together is learn abiding and walking with God. And there's some cool stories that he can share. One of which is, and Kathy and I have talked about this, that we're in a world that's troubled, and you're going to have trouble, and you're going to have adversity. It's a matter of what you allow God to do with that and through that. Ken had a house actually in the same neighborhood that he's in now, Rancho Bernardo, and you were actually traveling, and you wake up one day and find out that your house, the whole area is on fire. And by the way, your house,
Oh, wow.
your house ultimately burned down. And you and I actually, we got on the phone and talked about that. And hey, God, God's got this. Don't worry. But tell that story about how you understood it and why it didn't take you down. It actually had you witness for Christ through the process.
Yeah, Margie and I were both down in Florida, and we were doing training separately. And when we flew back and walked down our driveway, it looked like they had cremated our house and our two cars and all. And Margie said, well, God bless, nobody was hurt, including they got our dog out of there too. And so we just sort of said, I wonder what's God's got in mind, and so we had a party to celebrate our son Scott's house was saved, because he thought his was down too. He was in the neighborhood, but it wasn't. And somebody said there was a house for rent, just down the road, and we grabbed the signs and rented this house, and we were going to rebuild our house, and he had a neighbor next door who was kind of a pain, and he said we were going to block his view and all that kind of thing. He was on the architect committee for their neighborhood and held our plans up. And so Scott's wife walking the dog, and she knocks on our door, and she said, that beautiful house next door you've always loved just went up for sale. And we out and grabbed the signs, and 10 days later we had more house, more land, better view than our house.
Wow.
We rebuilt at a cheaper price, We said, thank God, Margie sent his neighbor a note for Christmas, said, you probably heard we're not going to be building in the lot next to you anymore. We bought that beautiful house at the top of the hill, and it never would have happened without you. And we just wish you a Merry Christmas. And Margie said I was sincere about that. And but life is really interesting, and so that we've been able to do a lot of wonderful things in that house. And there's a sign that somebody gave us that said, this is where love lives, and there's another sign about this is God's house, and Marge and I have just been very, very blessed, and just trying to, wherever we can, spread the good word about the power of a relationship with the Lord, because people have troubles. I mean, we've had friends who have died in this COVID thing and all, and the ones that have the Lord in their lives, it doesn't mean they don't grieve, but they have a different attitude than people that don't, who thinks that it's all over,
Yeah, and as you were, I remember when you were going through that, you were invited. I think didn't you appear on the Larry King show?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
And Larry, I know Larry asked you, well, how did you handle this? Because it just had happened right then. You'd heard about it, seen it, but he asked you, well, wait a minute, isn't this awful, terrible, and aren't you, really upset about it? And you answered him about, your relationship with Christ. Do you remember how you answered that when he asked that question?
I think I said, no, I think God's got some other plan for us. And it's not about a building or a home. It's about how you live your life,
Yeah.
And so I think that kind of got to Larry a little bit. He's a wonderful guy, actually.
Yeah, he is. And I remember that, it was, Kathy, it would be, he had big adversity, actually.
Right, obviously, yeah.
And a loss. But you and Margie all the way through it was, well, okay, now what, Father? What do you got to show us now? Yeah. You knew that, houses are, physical things, and they're important, but they don't define you.
That's right. Yeah.
And you moved on with, well, this ought to be interesting to see what God does about it. And you had the one thing that struck me, because I remember even talking to you from Florida when you had just heard about it, and this would be characteristic, Kathy, of Ken's heart and life, is that you still had a sense of joy in you, and that's always been the beautiful. You can see Christ in you because you truly live the life of joy, no matter what's going on.
Yeah. Well, I think the Lord really wants us all to understand that life is all about relationships. It's about who you love and who loves you. and it's not about things, you know. And I think people that end up accumulating things and trying to impress people, you know, they miss that it's not about that. It's really about, you know, what are you doing to help other human beings? What are you doing to spread the love of the Lord?
That's it. And then there was also this other cool thing, Kathy, that happened that Ken stated, and I've used it. I use it all the time, particularly in our retreats. But Margie recognized something prior to the fire. Margie actually had been working to give away things to her kids and families and other people.
Oh, interesting.
And these were objects that she gave away. And then after the fire, she made this comment. She said, you know, isn't it interesting that everything that I kept is gone? Everything that I gave away is now being used for other things, and it's really about the giving away part that matters, you know. And
there's so many good applications to that right there.
And I still have access, she said.
Yeah, and I still have access to it. Yeah.
Yeah, because, you know, she gave the kids different things, and so it's you know, we just learned a lot about that, you know, about the holding on and all. And I think that's one of the things I love about Margie, because she's always looking at the big picture of things, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And now I know you have you just introduced a new book that is already on the bestseller list after even a few days. Tell us about that book that you just wrote and gave out.
Yeah, it's called The Simple Truths of Leadership, 52 Ways to Become a Servant Leader and Build Trust. And I did it with Randy Conley, who's worked with us for 25 years and been a big, is considered a real leader in the trust area. And he's also a wonderful believer. And it's really interesting is that it's, quote, not written as a Christian book, but it's on a Christian bestseller list, you know, and all. But we do have some, like one of the simple truths is the first sentence from Rick Warren's Purpose-Driven Life. It's not about you. That's a simple truth, you know. And then another simple truth is one I mentioned, which is love is the answer. What is the question? And then about Corinthians 13, you know, love is patience, love is kind, and all. And it's really interesting. Jimmy Blanchard, who was president of Synovus, which was chosen the best company to work for from Fortune for so many times, they asked him to stop applying, you know. When Jimmy took over as president over 25 years ago, he's now retired, but he said, I want to tell you that my leadership book for my leadership is the Bible. And he took the characteristics from the love passage in Corinthians and put it into a questionnaire and had a 1 to 5 scale. And he gave it to his people once a year and said, rate me on patience, on kindness, on, you know, lack of envy and all that, and, you know, and which ones do I have to work on? And so that's in that whole session on love, because that's a wonderful way to take a look, because you look at those characteristics and they're all wonderful characteristics of a person who is really there to serve rather than be served.
Right. Yep. And as you've you know, we've been over these 15 years, Kathy, we just get in the Word, and Ken's learned to be an abider in the Word. Talk a little bit about that, Ken. Why do you enjoy, you know, being in the Word, and what excitement has that brought to your life?
Well, what I try to do every morning when I get up, I have a recumbent bike, and I have a whole group of readings I read from the Daily Word, from you know, Jesus Calling, and a whole bunch of things, and just to get my mind right in the morning, because I've said for a long time, and you know, Rich, that we have two selves. We have an external task-oriented self that's used to getting jobs done, and then we have a thoughtful, reflective self. And which one wakes up quicker in the morning? Of course, task-oriented self, when the alarm clock goes off, and you know, it's really it's a concept that John Ortberg, always said, why don't we call it the opportunity clock, or it's going to be a great day clock, an alarm, and you're trying to eat while you're washing and you jump in your car and you're racing around and all. And so one of the things that I've been saying is you need to enter your day slowly. And if you enter your day slowly with reflecting on the Lord and all, and then look at, what's planned for the day and say, how can I be today that really will model the Lord to other people? It really is a whole different thing. And then what I like to do at the end of the day is, write in a journal praisings, what did I do today that I think was consistent with who I want to be, and then redirections, things I wish I could, do over, the do-over game.
Yeah.
And it's really is true. So I think you need to enter your day thinking about the Lord so you can take him with you and all, rather than racing out of bed into your task-oriented self.
Yes.
That
Did
still happens.
some of what you learned in abiding play into, I haven't read the book, but I've read about the book, Don't Retire, Refire, Don't Retire.
Yes.
But from what I read, really talking about, knowing the purpose that God has for you in
Yeah.
this stage of life and living each day with purpose,
Yeah.
was some of what I grasped from that. So I wonder if that plays into some of what you're talking about now as well.
In 4 areas, and they're very
Mhm.
much when Jesus lost his parents in the temple when he was 12, and
Mhm.
they got him and said, come home, and it said Jesus went home with his mom and dad, and he grew in wisdom, which is intellect, grew in stature physically, grew in relationship with God spiritually, and grew in relationship to people, relationships. And
Right.
those are the 4 areas that you need to continue to refire. What are you doing, in terms of you're keeping your mind active? What are you doing physically? What are you doing spiritually? What are you doing in your relationships? And those are important things. And so we bring some of that out in this book. The neat thing about this Simple Truths of Leadership is that there's a concept on the left side of the page, like it's not about you, and then we talk about what that really means, and the bottom of the page, it always says how to take common sense and make it common practice, because the third line on the cover after Simple Truths of Leadership, 52 ways to become a servant leader and build trust, it says how to take common sense, make common sense common practice, because that's what I think we got to do. And the Bible is just full of so much common sense, and if we would only make it common practice, what a difference it would be in the world. I mean, you just look at the whole thing, and I got a chance to talk to all the Christian Republicans, faith-based Christian Republicans a few years ago, and I said, "Where's Jesus in your work here? Here you're in a contest, fighting with your opposing party." I said, "You know the Bible well. Answer this question: what does the Bible say that happens to people and organizations without vision?" They all shouted, "They perish." I said, "What's the vision for our country now? We don't have one. We used to have one, but we don't even agree on values anymore. I would have thought freedom of speech was a value, but now if you disagree with some interest group, they don't say, let's talk. They surround your business and try to put you out of business. And so I said, why don't you go and look at the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and come up with a modern day vision for America, and then go to the Democrats and say, here's our best shot. And so it's, but they haven't picked up on it. They're still self-oriented, it really is.
Yeah.
And as long as we stay self-oriented, that's a fear for the future. We got to have somebody who takes us to a higher level and brings us back to what Jesus was saying.
Yeah, and as you walk with God, as you're learning, and abide in the Word and follow Him to discern His will. How do you stay following Him as opposed to self-oriented? Because that's really the root issue of it. What do you see as important for all of us to understand personally?
Well, I kind of mentioned that. I think you need to kind of start your day thinking about your relationship to the Lord and ending the day and say, how did I do today?
Yeah.
It's a life, what do they say? Life unexamined is not worth living, or something like that. But you have to kind of continue to have a way to remind yourself of the importance, because it's not just about going to church on Sunday and then say, oh, it's a Sunday again, and because you've been just so great, Rich, in helping us realize that, how do we bring the Word of God into our lives on a day-to-day basis, because it's a way of life. It's just not a hysteric head thing.
Yep.
That's why He sent His Son down to model a life, and then He gave up His life for us, so that we'd have a mulligan anytime we needed it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. What are you excited about? What's happening next for you? What's God's assignment for you next?
Well, I've been talking to him, and what I keep on getting is, forget about what's next, Blanchard. You got this book and you got this movie. How do we get them into as many people's hands as possible? And so, I mean, if we can get this movie out there, so it really becomes something that people watch, it's just an amazingly wonderful way to share the gospel. And then the simple truths is just a simple way of just sharing what God's given me and folks in our company to share with people about how do we live with each other, how do we be with each other, because what did Jesus say? Even I have come to serve, not to be served,
That's it.
And I love his line, not so with you. That's pretty emphatic.
Yeah. Yeah, they kept arguing about who's going to be first.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. And to just realize, what he did for us, and it's such a powerful thing. But we got to make it part of our life, not just a Sunday do.
Yeah.
Right.
Amen. Yep. Yeah. And all based on, interesting enough, that's why maybe these two things are coming together. Is the mulligan is the essence of Christ. It's how about today? How about now? What I call now forward. Doesn't matter what happened yesterday. How about now? Let me give you that life, and that's we'll be excited to see that movie play out, and then your book of what does it mean to follow Him and be a servant, which is following Him and letting Him direct traffic, and then He wants you to give it away. So.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Can I ask what platform is the movie coming out on? Are you guys? I know you said it was like a 2-day release. Is it going to be similar to the kind of the special platform that the Chosen Christmas special came out? Is it coming in theaters for a limited release?
Yes, it's going to be in 1,000 theaters, and
okay.
And if the reception's where we'll be in more theaters. I think we're going to do that. We've been meeting lately, and it's amazing all the different youth groups and
right.
and that are involved in golf that are also, because having the backing of Tom Lehman and all of these faith-based golfers, that's really kind of pretty powerful. Bernard Langer, and it's just a great group of people.
Yeah. Did you get to meet Bernard Langer?
Yes.
Yeah, he's quite a guy.
He really is. I mean that, here he's still winning tournaments, and God, he's almost 60 years old or something like that. And,
yeah.
But he's just such a humble, caring guy that's really pretty powerful, and so it's I think the Lord's pretty clear. I just need to stay focused on what I can do, because I think that's one of the problems. People finish one project or one book, and then they're on to working on the next book before they've really gotten this one. And I want this book and this movie to impact people, for the Lord. And if we get people to perceive him in his heart, and then lead with simple truths of being servants and building trust. Wow.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
We could make a difference.
Yep.
And,
yeah, it's beautiful. Well, Ken, we're so love having you on, and it's such a joy for me to just see the life you are and have and experience, and the fun that's going to happen even next. And there's one, Kathy, one person, and a lot of people I know, but one of the people that I know has fun because I get to experience it is Ken Blanchard. you have fun. Whatever you're doing, you're going to have fun, and so it's a beautiful way of living, and look forward to, we'll have you back maybe after the movie comes out and the book for a while. We'll come out and kind of talk more about it, of the truths of that, which are just the essence of life with Christ, and you're able to express it. So
yeah.
Thank you so much, Ken, for joining us and sharing your life with us.
Absolutely. I'm so glad I got to meet you, Ken. And like Rich said, your joy is palpable.
Yeah.
Just sitting on the Zoom call with you, I can tell that God has just filled your life with joy, and it's a beautiful thing. So thank you for sharing that with us.
And maybe we can get Pat Boone to be on the show with you guys.
Yeah. We were actually, Kathy and I were just talking about that. We were talking about, I don't know if you knew, but Cooper Kupp, who just won the MVP for the Super Bowl, gave this fantastic testimony of Jesus. And we were talking about, hey, wouldn't it be good to have him on?
It's so fun to have him on.
So Ken, I'm gonna talk to you about that as some of your, some of the people that you know. We'd love to have him join us, because the stories of life with Christ, how fun is that? And we'd like to get more. So that's a cool thing.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting to watch a lot of those stars. Always things go good, they all go like this. There's a lot of faith-based folks out there.
Yep.
And I'm glad that he came forward in that, and so that's great.
Yeah, it is great.
Beautiful.
Well, we bless you, and we look forward to. I'll see you this week and on our call, and have a great day. And thank you so much again for sharing your joy with us, Ken.
Well, good.
Absolutely. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening. And be sure to share the podcast and go to the theaters and see Mulligan when it comes out.
Yep. We'll see you soon. All right. Thanks.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.